If you can get your pricing right in a systematic way, you can finally build your landscaping business to create that profitability you're looking for, which will allow you to achieve the freedom you wanted when you started your business in the first place. That's what we're going to go over today is how do we actually price our landscaping services? How do we actually price those installs? How do we actually price all the maintenance that we're doing so we can create consistent positive cash flow? Now, if you're like me, you've probably heard everything under the sun out there on the street. When you're at site one, you're at the supply house, picking up supplies, picking up landscape material, whatever it is, you probably heard it all. Let's take our material and triple it, and that's what we're gonna charge. Let's take our labor, multiply it by 15%, and then we're gonna take our materials and we're gonna double it. And let's do all these other things, and then we ask them, well, why do you do it that way? And they say, I don't really know. Or we find out what Joe down the street's charging and we charge a little bit less than that because we're trying to compete on price. And here's a news flash for you. If you're trying to compete on price, the person who wins that game goes out of business because you're the lowest price or you're not profitable. So that's what we're gonna go over today is how do we actually systematically price all the services we provide so we can create consistent positive cash flow, so we have a financially healthy business, so that we can achieve the goals that we want and build the life that we sought when we started our business in the first place. If you haven't been here before, thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Paul Maskill. For the last 13 years, I have scaled and sold local service-based businesses here in the Raleigh area. And now I work as a finance expert for landscapers just like you to help you have a growing and more profitable business so you can create consistent positive cash flow and achieve the goals that you're looking to achieve when you started your business, and the freedom and the travel and building wealth and buying real estate and all the other things that we want to do and leveraging our business to do so. The key to that is to have consistent, predictable profit. And the key to all of that is pricing. So how do we price our services? First, we're not going to get really super deep and technical because you're a landscaper, you're not a finance person. I'm a finance person by trade. I got a finance degree, sat in a cubicle for several years, and then I realized that's no fun. Quit it and started my own business 13 years ago and haven't looked back since. So, but what we really need to understand is what is our gross profit? You probably heard this 1,000 times and you might not actually know what it is. Gross profit isn't how much money's left over. Gross profit is how much money's left over after delivering the services out in the field. So we need to account for all of the expenses that go into delivering all of our services out in the field. The two main ones, you probably already know that, are labor and material. So all of the plant material, all the chemicals we're using, anything that we're using to deliver the job, and then obviously the people that are delivering the job for your company. So we need to know what our actual gross profit is. So we're gonna break it down here and kind of go over a high level of what it is so then you know exactly what you need to start charging to have a profitable and growing business. So what we first need to know is what is our target? What is our goal? If we don't know where we're going or what we're shooting for, we don't actually know what we should be doing today. So a great, very healthy business in the landscaping world has at least 50% gross profit. We're going to use that number just for ease of example and ease of calculation here. As you get better, as you get a little bit more efficient, I would like to see that number up closer to 60%. But for the ease of this video, we're going to shoot for 50%. So what does that mean? All of the inputs that go into delivering our service, we need to basically double that. So if all the inputs were 1,000, we need to charge 2,000 because then we have a 50% gross profit because there's $1,000 left over to then cover all of our overhead and put money in our pocket. So let's look at all of the inputs, and we're also going to look at several things that a lot of people don't look at, and this is where they get caught. So first, let's look at labor. Let's use the example that your employees make $25 an hour. This is where a lot of people get stuck. They think, okay, if it's a 6-hour job, $25 times 6, say it's just one person for example's sake, $150, cool, that's our labor. But we need to know what's all involved in labor because we need to recoup all the costs we're putting out there. So when we look at labor, we not only need to know what they're getting paid, but we also need to know how efficient are our people? How much non-billable time do they have? So let's say on average, and you're gonna have to calculate this, I would encourage everybody out there to have some sort of CRM software like Jobber. Jobber is phenomenal, it'll tell you this stuff. But let's say on an average week that your employees in the field work 40 hours, so they get paid for 40 hours, and Jobber only tells you that they only are actually delivering service 20 hours out of that week. And we're gonna use that number just to make this example super simple. So 20 hours, they're actually delivering service, but they're getting paid for 40. So we need to account for those other 20 hours that they're driving, eating lunch, picking up material, taking breaks, whatever it is that's not actually delivering service. So we need to know what their labor actually is. And using that example, their labor is actually $50 an hour when we're putting together an estimate, because we need to account for all the time that they're not working. So now we know our labor is, say, $50 an hour, and they're working 8 hours. So now we're at $400. The next thing we have to look at is payroll tax and workers' comp. Those are two other things that go into, in my opinion, go into actually paying their wages. So we need to look at payroll tax. Generally speaking, it's around 10%, depending on what state you live in. So say that's, another 10% on top of the $400. So we're doing this all in my head, but that's $440. And then say workers' comp is, just use an example, say it's another $10. So now we're at $450. So we've got our labor rate, we've got our payroll taxes, we got our workers' comp. Then we want to look at all of the other things that go into delivering the service. The next thing is material. For example's sake, say your material is $550. So we had $400 for wages, we had $40 for payroll tax, we had $10 for workers' comp, so we're at $450, and then we have $550 for material. So now we're at $1,000. So $1,000 are our expenses. Now, what we also want to and have to recoup are all the other expenses that go into delivering the service that you are providing. So this is small tools and equipment. This is maintenance on your equipment. This is maintenance on your vehicles. This is fuel. In my opinion, this is also uniforms. So all of the other expenses that go into delivering your service that you're only paying for if you're delivering service is going to be in that thing. So hopefully that gives you a little bit better insight into, and I'm just going to here look at my notes, make sure I'm covering everything. So we've got our tools and equipment. So we've already got, starting at the top, we've got our labor, we've got our payroll tax, we've got our workers' comp, we've got our material, we've got tools and equipment, we've got uniforms, and then we've got all of our vehicle and equipment costs. So the fuel for your vehicles, the fuel for your equipment, the maintenance for those things as well, and anything else that goes into those. And then we also have to recover what it costs to operate those every day. So a lot of people don't think about this, but how much does it actually cost to operate your Isuzu box truck? Or how much does it actually cost to operate your zero-turn mower? All of those expenses we've got to recover, otherwise we're not going to be profitable. So this is just a super simple example. Say your vehicle expense is $1,000 a month for your Isuzu box truck, and there's 20 working days in a month. That's another $50 that we need to recover. So all of these things start to add up to what we determine our cost of goods sold. So revenue minus cost of goods sold equals gross profit. That gross profit margin is what we want to be at least 50%. So let's kind of recap everything that we have. So we determined that our all-in labor was around $450. Then we determined that our materials are $550. Those are our two main expenses. So say we're at $1,000. Then we need to look at our tools and equipment. So how much is our tools and equipment per job? Now that's a very complicated formula, but it's not rocket science. Basically, we want to figure out what do we spend on tools and equipment, and how long do they last, and then how much is that part of that job. So it really comes into like a package of per hour tools and equipment package. Same thing for uniforms, same thing for fuel, and all the things that we got to figure out of how much fuel do we use on average per day, per hour, however we want to figure that out. And then we're also, like we said, we're also going to look at our vehicle and equipment costs. So say that a Isuzu box truck is $1,000 a month and there's 20 working days, and we know this is a full day job. We know that's another, $50 a day. So say we add all that up and it comes out to $1,500 for example's sake. Now we know that we have our labor, which is $450. We have our material, which is $550. And then we have everything else. Some people consider that burden, so call it our burden is $500. We know all in just to deliver that job is going to cost us $1,500. Now, in order to hit 50% gross profit, we know that we need to double that price. So $1,500, so we're going to charge the customer $3,000 for that job that we determine is an 8-hour job. So hopefully that helps give you guys some insight into how do we actually start pricing properly. Now the key is to stick with it, and then that's only just part of your profitability, part of your cash flow. But I promise you, if you actually have a systematic formula to determine pricing on everything, you will finally get to where you want to go, assuming we can get all of our overhead in line. The other key to that is obviously we have to be accurate at estimating. I've seen plenty of companies where the person doing the estimating and the foreman are on 2 different pages. So the person doing the estimating might say, hey, this is an 8-hour job. And then the foreman goes in there with, the crew, like, they get started like, no. This is a 2-day job. This is 16 hours. Now we just got crushed. So there's still a lot of things that have to happen. Again, pricing is the most important, but there are still so many other important things to that process as well. So if you have any questions, put them in the comments below, reach out to me. But I promise you, if you start implementing even just what we talked about today, you will start to have more cash in the bank, have a more predictable profit, and start to have that financial freedom that you're looking for in your business.